For this build, I'm going to use this particular kit of the M4 Sherman from Dragon. And what I've done is I've taken the hull of this M4A2 and I've put some of the details on it. And I'm going to take the turret and I'm going to make a mold and cast it. And actually, I've already done that. And here's what I've got. Here's the turret. It's a little bit rough looking. I just barely pulled it out of the mold and it's ready to go. And here is the cast of the hull. In looking at it now, I've sprayed it black already to do start some of the work on it. But we're going to use this as our starting point. I decided I didn't want to destroy a decent Dragon kit, if that makes any sense. And quite some time ago, I made a mold of these. That way I could start kind of mass producing my own M4A2 Shermans for my own purposes. So that's our starting point for today's build. And let's get started on it.
So I made the hull using this mold. I made this about 1.5 years ago. And what I based it on was the M4A2 from Dragon that was the Tarawa kit. And it gave me these nice squared off whatever they call them, periscope guards. Anyway, so I partially assembled the hull and used it to make this mold. Now this has produced, I want to say 7 or 8 castings already, and some very, very nice castings. And this is what I used for the hull on the Submerged Sherman. I didn't want to just take some nice kit and really beat it up and do what I did to get that submerged look. So using the resin copy was really the way to go for me.
What really caused me to make these molds was I wanted to do the Submerged Sherman from Tarawa, and the kit that is out from Verlinden, the resin one that's out from Verlinden, well, it's just impossible to come by anymore. And if you can find it, it's very, very expensive. So I made the molds, and I went ahead and did a partial pour in the mold. And as you can see, this is how my Tarawa Sherman turned out from those molds that I had made.
You can see on the mantlet, it's the early style. And I think I've got everything on here that I want to have on this particular project. So now I'm going to just give it a quick coat of primer, black. And here it is, completely covered with a coat of Mission Models black primer. Once this dries, we're going to go over it with the red oxide primer that Mission Models has. And then in a few little areas, we're going to add a little bit of OD. So anyway,
well, we're ready to coat the turret on this Submerged Sherman. And you'll see I have a nice gloss coat. I put some Future on it to kind of protect the paint itself. Not that it'll need protecting with what we're going to do. But anyway, I have a solution of, well, not a solution, but some powdered rust. And how I make that, one of my other videos, I go step by step, but pretty much it's real rust. It's made with steel wool and water and time. Then I have some baking soda that we're going to use, and of course some watered down white glue. So let's see how this turns out. Here we go. So I'm going to put on a layer of this watered down white glue, and I don't want to put a whole lot on it. I mean, I want to cover it well. I just don't want to gob it everywhere. I want to make sure it's watered down enough, but not too much. Enough so that it spreads well. But if I go too much, then the material I'm going to put on isn't going to stick. So I do need to make sure I work fairly quickly, as I do have a fan on. and I just don't want to dry out too quickly. I did leave a few details off this. In the ones that I have seen in the Pacific, or pictures of in the Pacific, I should say, I haven't actually seen them, but the ones that I have seen pictures of, some of the details are missing, some of the grab handles and things. Now I did keep them on this. This particular one has lifting rings that is a little bit up higher on the turret. Let's see if I feel good about coverage, and I do. I feel pretty good about the coverage. I'm not going to get all of the barrel just yet. So now I'm going to start with a little baking soda, and the reason for this is I want it to have kind of a appearance of salt. I want to look like there's some crusty salt on this thing. So I'm going to put a little bit there and there, wipe that off, and then take my rust powder, which is actual rust, and now I'm going to put it kind of all over the rest of it. Nice thing about this rust is, well, you can't complain about the color. It's rust, so it's the real thing. But it does add some different tones in that rust. We're going to see how this works. If I'm not happy, of course I can put more glue on and try again on some areas. So okay, there we are so far. I think we're pretty much done with the Submerged Sherman. So what I did is I used my rust, and I used some of the baking soda, and to enhance the colors on the rust and the baking soda, I took some pigments. We have raw sienna, Mars red, Naples yellow, and Mars brown, which is my favorite rust color of all. These were actually some pretty good colors to enhance the rust that I already had, and you can kind of see where some of those colors might have been used to kind of give us that uneven rusty look. We're going to kind of turn around and look at we tried to simulate some of the salt. I'm actually not building this exactly how it sits in the Pacific today because, well, several reasons, but I just wanted it to look like it had been there for, 50 or 60 years. So, kind of some corrosion on it. We'll build a nice diorama base and put some water around it. I should probably put some hatches on it, so I can still do that. And then of course I'm going to have to do something to simulate an engine down in the water, but that shouldn't be too hard. So anyway, here is the work on the Submerged Sherman, and hope you like it.
And the pigments really made a difference on how the rust looked, I think. Turned out pretty well. So I'm going to add the hatches here in just a few minutes. Now I need a base, and what I thought I would do is I took a piece of wood from a pallet. It actually kind of looks like a piece of driftwood, and I have taped off the edge, and then I painted the base with a beautiful bright blue. Used some acrylic gel medium by Liquitex. Actually, this is acrylic gel heavy that I put on there, and then I took a brush and kind of built up around the side where there was a few little gaps, and so we'll see how this looks. It should fill in quite nicely. I'm probably going to put one more layer on after this so that it's a little bit thicker and gives us a little bit more depth. So that's going to be the next step. For the engine, what I did is I took a couple of valve covers out of a Chrysler because what I needed was two inline 6-cylinder GMC engines down inside there. And I just took these valve covers, kind of gummed them all up and stuck them down in there, and I think it turned out pretty good. I let that dry for a day, and then I put on a second coat to try and give it a little bit more depth, and I think I succeeded with that. here it is, all finished up. Not quite completely dry on that second coat of acrylic gel, but I've got everything glued down, and I kind of like the way that this turned out. So thanks for watching, and that'll conclude this piece on our Submerged Sherman.